Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Hardcore Henry. When thinking about Hardcore Henry, I think the first question you'd have is, does the POV shot really work for the entire movie, or is it just really stupid? And it is really stupid, but also the POV shot actually kind of works. It is a dumb action movie after all, through this kind of video game POV, and that might sound really annoying and really stupid, but it kind of works and definitely brings up the point that a lot of the media that we take in that isn't necessarily cinema ends up influencing the kind of cinema that we make, much like how vaudeville and theater did when cinema was in its early stages, or literature, or even comic books and MTV editing when MTV was a thing, or just, the advent of music videos. These are all kind of natural progressions, especially when you have younger filmmakers who, how they understand visual storytelling comes from a particular thing. And I think Hardcore Henry does that, but with video games, which is kind of a natural progression of the medium, to be honest. It makes a lot of sense that a movie like this would eventually happen. Now, it is kind of kitschy and gimmicky, but that's kind of all part of the fun of this movie, is seeing a very violent, stupid, crazy action movie from this POV shot constantly going and moving and having crazy, stupid things happening while you see Sharto Copley playing a million different characters. It's a crazy ride of an action film that gives you exactly the kind of stupid fun you'd want from a movie called Hardcore Henry. The movie opens as Henry is waking up, as you're seeing everything from his perspective. He wakes up in a clinic and you see a scientist, Estelle, who is his wife, who is waking him up and putting new robot parts in him as he has been resuscitated after something happened to him. We're not exactly sure what. As he's starting to learn his new robot clone body, these bad guys come and attack the lab that they are in, tries to kidnap his wife as him and his wife get away, but then the bad guys do get his wife and he has to go on an epic journey to get her back and find out exactly what happened to him and how he got in this crazy robot body, as we, the audience, see everything from his perspective. First-person shooters were very much a thing when I was a kid because of Doom and Wolfenstein 3D, and this film really plays off that language, which is natural. I think any way someone learns visual storytelling, it isn't just through movies. I think when people do it just through movies, somehow everyone feels that's a little more natural, but it's not really realistic in terms of how influence works with movies. And with Hardcore Henry, it's very much using the video game influence. Now, this director has done that before. This is kind of his thing. He's made various music videos for his band. The director is Ilya Nashashurler, I think. His name will be right down there because I can't say anyone's name, really. No offense to him. But he's done this before with great success online. I remember seeing a bunch of them, and I believe I've seen other short films, but maybe I just saw this guy's short films because when I read about the music videos, those sounded familiar, and those are the only ones I can remember. But, obviously the Prodigy music video, Smack My Bitch Up, and it's been used in other films as well. Although it is kind of an interesting idea, since most of us do see through POV shots most of the time. I don't know about you, but I do at least. It's at least interesting to literally see through someone else's eyes, but the way the main character Henry holds the gun up to the camera feels very much like you're watching a first-person shooter. It has the visual grammar and language of a video game, and that just shows you how visual storytelling has changed and how video games are seeping into movies. For people who didn't grow up with those sort of things, that might seem odd. It makes sense for someone from the millennial generation to be the ones to really get into that, especially for a stupid action movie, because most kids when we were growing up probably played more hours of Streets of Rage or Doom and actually got to see Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, most of which were R, and you actually couldn't see. So I have more memories in the 90s of playing those games than I do seeing Schwarzenegger movies, which I ended up seeing when I was older, but you weren't really allowed to see beyond like Terminator 2. So most of the way people actually understand action is kind of from stuff like this. So in a lot of ways, Hardcore Henry makes a lot of sense. I know it is a gimmick, but it doesn't stray away from that this is a stupid, silly movie. If you go into it kind of getting it's a gimmicky, silly, fun little action movie, I think you'd be down for it. In a lot of ways, I think this actually also talks about how experimental genre can really be, particularly action and horror, because really all you need to do for an action or horror genre film is like have the moments that genre fans will like. So you just have to have like explosions and guns and blood and gore, and it doesn't really matter how you deliver them. As long as you have them, any distributor is going to put it out because they'll be like, oh, it has a gimmick, maybe people will see it. You can't really do that with a drama and get a release like this. But if you're a horror movie or an action movie, somehow you can, which is something I think that's kind of cool, is that genre fans are all for it. The same kind of people who saw Hardcore Henry were totally the same people who saw John Wick, and to them it's just another crazy stupid action movie. It's not like the most experimental movie ever. I mean, it's a lot dumber than a lot of experimental movies, but it at least is being a little more experimental in its genre. It's doing something new with the genre, frankly, and that makes it all that much more fun. And this is kind of like a fun, dumb action movie with all its explosions, with like all the fun things they do throughout the film. Like when he's walking by, he breaks into that room and the couple's smoking weed and the girl doesn't even notice. Or when he's trying to get out of the forest and he finds that horse and they have like the Bonanza music starts to play and you think, oh shit, this movie's so crazy, of course he's gonna ride a horse. And then the horse throws him off and it just gets left behind. And the thing with the guy with the flamethrower, all of Sharlto Copley's stuff, it just amplifies all this stupid, dumb fun. You never really get too attached to all the theoretical stuff going on with the camera, which was actually a GoPro attached to various different stunt performers. You can tell where the cuts are. They don't really try to hide it, and it's better that they don't, frankly. Sometimes his eyes have static or flicker or something like that. Sometimes they just have cuts. I just accept it. But since it's always moving and constantly having fun and only lulled in a few spots, you're always going with it. I really like Sharlto Copley in this a lot. He plays so many different characters and he's so good at it. It's like actually a lot of fun. You never know who he's going to show up as. It's probably one of Sharlto Copley's best performances next to District 9, but he's really, really funny in this movie. I've never really seen him pull off comedic chops like this, certainly not in Chappie, but in this he's just like so funny, playing all these different characters, playing a hippie, an English soldier from World War II, this weird like grass monster, playing this older midlife crisis coked out businessman in a whorehouse. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but he just had so many different personas in this movie. It was just a lot of fun. You never knew how Sharlto Copley was going to show up, and he's obviously the guide throughout this movie, where sometimes he calls Henry, which feels like a very video game moment, like you're on a mission and somebody calls you to give you more information. But Sharlto Copley has so much fun with this, and it's like fun to watch him have fun, but there's a lot of skill to all the craziness he's doing. He even has a musical sequence. He's like out of this world in this movie. He's really the only actor in this film who's really trying, but he's just so good. I wish he could get like a best supporting actor for Hardcore Henry, but I guess that'll never happen. The amount of skill and the amount of range Sharlto Copley brought to Hardcore Henry is just so impressive. I really see him as a whole different kind of actor now, but it's so like silly character actor stuff, very hammy, but like almost like perfectly hammy. I think if you're the type of person who likes a fun, silly, ridiculous action film, Hardcore Henry is for you. And if you're willing to have fun with an action film and watch a bunch of gore and blood and explosions and laugh in the theater at something ridiculous happening in an action movie, then this is definitely a movie for you. But if you think action movies are just dumb and don't really get the genre and see like a few of them, or if like a big director gets them and you're like, hey, I like action movies, I saw Argo, then maybe Hardcore Henry isn't for you, and this whole thing is just a road you shouldn't go down. But I think for the people who would like Hardcore Henry, this is like a really fun experience. It's not the greatest action movie. I don't think this director's really announced himself the way like a great action director, like the way Dredd did or the Raid movies. This isn't really like that. It's just kind of like the gimmick and the experiment of it, and how stupid and fun and visceral it is really just makes it work, despite that it's probably not the greatest film overall. It does have a paper thin plot. It is a little too stupid, but it's like almost just the right amount of stupid. If this came on TV, I'd probably watch it and laugh and be able to get up and do something else and come back and be fine with it. And it has that kind of light, airy feel to it that I think gives it kind of a real pop sensibility, but it's not really a masterwork of filmmaking. It's kind of just a natural evolution of all our influences in cinema and video games that was probably eventually going to happen anyway. It's just this guy's the one to really pull it off and do it, and he did it in a fun way, and I'm excited for him as a filmmaker. I don't think it's in the great pantheon of recent action movies, and there are a lot of really great action directors right now. This just really, to me, is just a fun, stupid action movie with a crazy good gimmick that reflects how we all take in media and action stories, at least in the last 20 years. And it's smart about that, and that's how it gets it to work. And I kind of give it a lot of credit just because I had so much fun with it. And I know it's not that crazy well-directed like action orchestra that a really great action movie can be. It's just kind of like a dumb, silly little action film that gets wrapped up in all the crazy things going throughout it that kind of like pushes its quality through somehow. And even though it has like a villain with superpowers and all this silly nonsense going on, it almost feels like a cultish kind of action film. But to me, it's like, yes, the gimmick really does work, and it really does reflect the kind of first-person shooter kind of perspective, but it's also really, really stupid. But that's the kind of action movie it's going for. So I could knock it for not being as great as some of the greatest action movies of the decade, but really what it's trying to do is it's trying to be a real meat and potatoes action film shot in a crazy visceral way with a cool gimmick to make it something even more than that, even though that's really all it is. You can put a lot of stuff on a hot dog, but it's still a hot dog. And I think Hardcore Henry is like a really amazing hot dog dinner, but it doesn't really want to do anything more than that. But while I was watching it, I was totally okay with it, and I think the movie is okay with it as well. Hardcore Henry leaves it all out on the floor while it rips through the audience's sensibilities to make you love the kind of dumb, gimmicky action movie that it really is and can't escape from being, but never wants to escape from being, and that's kind of what makes it so fucking cool. So if you have seen Hardcore Henry and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.